afternoon, everyone. My name is Pam Scott. I'm the Director of Client Services with Oasis Solutions, and I'd like to welcome everyone to the first Sage Tips and Tricks webinar of 2020. So we've all survived year end, and we're ready to get started and look forward to what 2020 is going to bring. I want to start the presentation by letting you know that we're using a new webinar tool today. So if you have attended some of our other webinars, the toolbar is going to look a little bit different, where you can ask questions or raise your hand. Your phone lines are muted during this presentation, but I will open it up to questions. So feel free to go ahead and type your questions in. I will get to as many of those as I can today. And any that I'm unable to address during our time together, I will follow up with you after the presentation. So today we're going to talk about a couple of different things. We're going to talk about Sage 100, the road ahead. We're going to talk about when versions retire or end of life, as Sage calls it, and explain really what that is and what it means to you. And then also talk about upgrades and the process and so forth. So I'm going to go ahead and start the presentation. So Sage has made some changes recently to how they address version retirements. So beginning in 2020, the oldest supported version will be retired at the time of the newest release. So for instance, everything that we have told you over the past several years regarding when a version is, quote, retiring, it's always September 30th of that particular year. So for instance, the path had always been that version 2017 was going to retire September 30th of 2020. They have changed that, and they're now saying that it will reach end of life or be retired at the point they release the 2020 version. So, so we're gonna take a look at that in just a couple of minutes at what that looks like. And then also, historically, and this is still consistent, Sage supports the current version and 2 prior versions. So they've supported, had that philosophy for several years, and I don't see that that's going to be changing anytime soon. I just mentioned that normally retirements were on September 30th of each year, but that has been changed. And then here's a look at the new supported versions. So you can see here, this is version 2017, which is also known as 5.4. It was actually released by Sage in October of 2016, and instead of the end of support being September 30th of 2017, or excuse me, of 2020, it's now going to be at whatever date they release version 2020, which is estimated to happen in March of this year. So the 2018 version will be retired when they, the end of support will be when they release the 2021 version, and then with 2019 will be when they release 2022, and so forth and so on. So what does that mean to you, especially if you're on version 2017? Well, first of all, and I think I have this on another slide, I don't want you to panic thinking that you're going to have to get your software upgraded in the next couple of weeks. So we have a plan for that. So things are not going to happen that quickly. So, but first of all, let's talk a little bit about what does end of support mean. What that means is Sage software is no longer going to issue any product updates or patches for a version. It also means that Sage software would no longer provide technical support of that version directly to you as the end user or to Oasis on your behalf. As always, OASIS will continue to support your Sage software to the best of our ability until we are able to upgrade your system. So when that 2020 version drops and Sage considers 2017 at end of support, that does not mean that OASIS is not going to help you with projects that are already going on, with technical support issues. We are going to still continue to help you. Sage software does not test retired versions on new technology. So if there's a new Windows 2020 server that comes out, they're not going to test the versions that have reached end of life with that new technology. It doesn't mean it wouldn't work, but it would mean that it's not tested, and Sage would not support it if there were issues. Sage software will not issue any year-end updates related to W-2s, 1099s, or payroll tax tables when a version has reached end of support or end of life. And then also, and I'm thinking that everyone that has the payroll module that's on a version prior to 2018 knows that the new W-4 changes are only available in the newer versions. I know we're working with several clients right now with payroll, getting those upgrades in the queue so that we can get that taken care of, and then I continue to get requests daily. So I'm going to ask if anybody has any questions, if you will raise your hand or put something in the Q&A, and I will be glad to answer those questions. So this is kind of what we've talked about a little bit. You know, if you're on version 2017, do you have to upgrade next month? The answer to that is no. So don't panic. We're going to continue supporting your version 2017 until we get your system upgraded. But if you do use the payroll module, you really should upgrade in 2020 for sure. And the sooner you upgrade, the better, because you want to be able to have that new W-4 features and those updated kind of tax tables where now it's not allowing dependents. So you'll have those new screens. So payroll, please don't wait until November of this year and then ask if we can get your upgrade done by the end of the year, because typically with that short of a time frame, we are not able to accommodate that, and we don't want anybody running into any issues. If you don't use the payroll module, it's still important that you plan an upgrade this year, but it's not as critical if you don't have the payroll module. But still, I wouldn't delay and put that off. I would still go ahead and start thinking about now that you're going to need to upgrade this year. So if you are currently running version 2017, you should have received an email from me earlier this year, and maybe even late last year, probably in December and January, talking about that 2017 was going to retire in September, which is the information that we had at that point. If you did not get an email from me, I have found that maybe emails were sent to contacts that are no longer with your company, or possibly it was sent to an incorrect contact and they didn't pass that along. It could be that it got caught up in your junk mail or your spam. So if you did not receive anything from me, I'll show you here shortly how to get in touch with me so that I can resend the information to you about upgrading. If you're on version 2016 or prior, the folks that are on 2016, we still have some of those that are still on that version. You should have received at least two emails from me during 2019 regarding the need to upgrade. And again, you know, maybe that went to somebody last year that's no longer with your company, and you need me to send you current information, and I will be glad to do that. So if you're So basically, I guess the bottom line is, if you're on 2017 or lower, you need to talk with us about getting your Sage 100 upgraded. So I'm going to just see if anybody has any questions, and I don't believe that I have any at this point. So if you do not recall getting an email, if you received the email and thought, I'm just too busy to deal with this, I'll do it later, and you can't find the email, send me an email at pam@oasisky.com and just ask for upgrade information. And then what I'll do is I'll send you an upgrade request form. It's the process we've used for several years. I'll also send you a copy of the Sage Supported Platform Matrix that you can share with your IT professional, because you're going to want to make sure that your servers, your operating system, your workstations are all compatible with the latest version. From the time you fill out that request form and send it back to me, at this time I am usually able to get that scheduled within 1 to 2 weeks, and then I'm working very diligently to turn around those statement of works back to you for approval within about a week. The exception to that would be if you have numerous third-party products or OASIS modifications. I do have to get quotes or talk with all of your vendors. I have to talk with our internal programmers, so that may hold it up just a little. And I did see a question pop up. I'll get to you in just 1 second. We do schedule the upgrades on a first-come, first-served basis. And I will tell you that as of today, our team, our lead time is probably, we're probably booked with upgrades through at least May already, and we're probably getting into June. So, you know, we can do those analysis now. You can get the project approved. I'll get a project manager assigned, and then we will get you into the queue. If you do have custom modifications, specifically if you have OASIS modifications, it's going to increase your lead time of probably 8 to 12 weeks of when we can actually start once you approve it. And third-party products can also increase that lead time as well. So let me go up and see if I can see this question. The question, is there a new version every year, and is 2019 the current version, I think is the question, excuse me. Yes, Sage historically releases a new version every year. It typically comes out in the first quarter, more toward the end of the first quarter of each year. So with that, and I may have this later in the presentation, but let's say that you need to upgrade and you send me all the information, we do the analysis, I scope the work for you and provide you with an estimate that you approve. That estimate today is going to be based on version 2019. But let's say that your upgrade isn't going to occur until July, and the 2020 version is released and we're comfortable with installing it. We would then install that version rather than having you a version behind. So, and I'm going to talk a little bit more in a few minutes about our philosophy on getting those scheduled. Okay, so if anybody else has any questions, please feel free to add those. All right, so kind of talking about the version release, Sage has told us that typically the new version of the 2020 version is going to come out in March of this year. Sage continues to reserve the right to change those release dates with little to no notice. And also, you will receive the release notice at the same time we do. We do not get advanced copies of the final product it's kind of released to all of us at the very same time. So with that, and this is what I was going to mention when I was answering the question, the previous question, is that we do not rush into upgrading clients with the very latest version. We install here and do extensive internal testing, and we typically wait until the first round of product updates, which are basically patches and fixes, are released before we start installing it ourselves. So we want to be comfortable and know that the major issues that were not found during the initial beta testing have been resolved, and that those patches and fixes have been released. So we will let you know when we're comfortable with that. We do not want any of our clients being, first adopters, because you just don't know, if there's something, even though Sage is very, very diligent with testing, software is software, and there's always things that are not caught. So my best guess, if they do release it in March, that we would probably start installing the 2020 version by the beginning of Q3 of this year. So again, that's best case scenario, and that's assuming that this new version does drop sometime next month. So if anybody has any other questions, please feel free to drop them in. So with the 2020 version, I'm going to show you some of the features that Sage has added. And also, if you'll notice, some of this says that it's Sage 100 Cloud only. So let me step back and explain a little bit about Sage 100 Cloud and the new features in that product. As most of you are aware, over the past few years, Sage 100 changed their name from Sage 100 to Sage 100C, and then a couple of years ago, they changed the name of the product to Sage 100 Cloud. That is confusing for a lot of folks, because it is not a true cloud product. It is still installed on-premise somewhere. Now, you may have it hosted, but it is still installed on-premise. It is more of a cloud hybrid product, meaning that there are features and functionality that are built within Sage that are cloud-based. And if you've been using Sage for the past 5 or so years, a good example of cloud functionality would be printing your 1099s or your W-2s using Atrix. Atrix is accessed via the internet, but through Sage 100. So as they add some of these new features, some of those are considered are cloud products that are kind of built into it. But Sage 100 Cloud itself is not a true cloud product. It is still installed on-premise. The other thing is, many of you, in fact, almost our entire client base, has moved to the subscription plan model with your maintenance, and that does give you, basically, it takes you to 100C or 100 Cloud. And you had probably gotten information from Sage about a lot of the new features in Sage 100 Cloud, but just by changing the look of your screen and being on that subscription does not automatically provide you with those new features. The features are released in various versions, so in order to have those features, you have to be on that version, if that makes any sense. So what we're looking at today is this is proposed for the 2020 release. It's going to be in Sage 100 Cloud only, but if you're using Sage 100 Cloud on version 2017, in order to get this, you're going to have to be on the latest version. So if I made that very confusing, let me know and I'll try to clarify. But this is just a sample of some of the things that Sage has told us that are most likely going to be included in the 2020 version. They're going to expand the name fields to up to 50 characters. That is one of the features, and that's going to be on your customer maintenance as well as your contact maintenance. They're going to include being able to do multiple POs on a single receipt. When you're doing your receipt of goods entry, you can now do receipts in that one entry screen on multiple purchase orders. They're going to have a reverse check run utility in accounts payable that is going to make it easier to reverse checks or electronic payments that are created via check printing or the electronic payment menu, which is the ACH for accounts payable. So they're going to make that easier and more streamlined than what you're having to do right now. They are looking to add expiration dates for serial and lot numbers in your inventory. So there's several new things that they're going to be adding related to serials and lots. And if you will notice here that they have told us that this is just a mock-up and it is subject to change, but that is the plan as of this moment. They're also going to be launching e-invoicing, which is kind of a click to pay and to be able to accept credit cards and ACH transactions from your customers, and also be able to import into cash receipts much easier. So that is another feature that they are going to be adding. The personal information de-identifier is that they will, they're working on things to have personal identification information not as accessible in Sage in various areas. So this is one of the things that they're looking at related to customer maintenance. They made several changes to the payroll module when the new payroll hit a couple of versions ago. A couple of more things that they're looking at adding is in the custom office module, deferred user-defined field updates, mask display attributes, and grid enhancements. For those of you that use job cost, they're looking at job cost billing, work in progress, fix, and other enhancements. That fix is related to some of the things that came out with 2019, the version 2019. In Library Master, there's a company data conversion that's going to make upgrades more efficient, as well as the migration wizard enhancement. And then there's also going to be list box export to Excel to make things much quicker to automatically create custom lists and export those directly into Excel for reporting purposes. They're going to be more support and information and ways to use the bank feed export. The classic desktop retirement. What that means is, for those of you that have migrated over to 100C or 100cloud, you know that you can have two different views of what your Sage looks like. One is called classic, which I'll call the old look. It's the way Sage 100 has looked since it went from DOS to Windows, with your tree views and how that looks. The Sage 100 look has a more modern feel to it. and most of the fonts and the modules are in green. Those of you that use it will know what I'm talking about it. But it's user specific on how you want to see your screen. So for instance, I've worked in that classic desktop view for so many years that that is my preferred view when I'm working in Sage, just because it's easier, I guess, and I don't adapt to change really well sometimes, if I want to be honest about it. But with 2020, you are not going to have that functionality to go back and forth between looks. The classic desktop view is going to be retired, so it will just be the 100C view beginning with that version. And then there's going to be a new common components location as well. Okay. This is kind of just an outline of what they're thinking. Is that in March of 2020, they're going to release the version 2020. Some of the things that I've talked about, also international addresses. They're expanding fields to make it much more conducive to being able to use international addresses. So this is planned tentatively right now for March. Any program fixes that need to be generated, they're saying that those, if they're required, they should be out by June. And again, this is kind of where we would then start doing those 2020 upgrades. If there are program fixes required, once those have been released and we've tested them, then we would start scheduling that version of upgrade. In September of 2020, they are looking at issuing or publishing Service Update 1 with adding some additional features and enhancements. And then in December, they will issue Product or Service Update 2, which will have any of the year-end tax updates, not the tax tables, because you know that changed in beginning with version 2018. But things like this year where the W-4 form changed, any updates like that are needed. If there's changes to the W-2 form or 1099 that need to be installed, those will be slated for release in December of this year. I don't see any additional questions. If you have any other questions, please feel free to enter those in. And just to kind of recap what we've talked about today is, if you would like to request an upgrade, if you need further clarification on, do I need to upgrade? What do I need to do? How does this process work? Send me an email, and I will get back in touch with you, talk you through the process, and let you know what the next steps are. If you don't have any questions and you just want me to go ahead and send you the upgrade request form and the supported platform matrix with the IT requirements, just shoot me an email making that request, and I'll get that over to you as quickly as possible. If you've already signed off on an upgrade, we are getting project managers assigned, and they will be in touch very soon. As I mentioned, we have a significant number of upgrades in the pipeline already for 2020, and we are working to get to everyone as soon as possible. And then if you use the payroll module in Sage 100 and you're on version 2017 or lower, please get in touch with me so that we can talk about the process and getting things started. Again, we never want to tell someone that we can't do an upgrade for them, but if you wait until late in the fourth quarter of this year, we just cannot make any guarantees that we will be able to get you upgraded. And historically, we do not perform any upgrades of Sage software between mid-December through the end of January. So kind of keep that in mind as well. So that really kind of goes through the process of end of life for various versions of Sage, when the new versions are going to come out, and some of the features and functionality. Next month, I know some of you have already scheduled for the webinar in March, but my next webinar is on Wednesday, March the 18th. And in that webinar, we're going to talk about all of the new features that have been added over the past couple of years to the Sage 100 Cloud product, so that you know with Cloud exactly what's new, there are some things that, some features that you can add on, purchase to add on, that are only available with 100c/cloud, and there are a lot of new features that have been built in automatically. So I'm going to go over kind of that list and review that in March. And then after March, the webinars will go back to focusing on individual modules, and so that schedule should be out on our website, and I believe they have everything scheduled through the end of this year, so you can see what is coming. One last thing I would like to mention, just as an FYI, this year in 2020, we are going to be doing a lot more Sage 100 classroom training. So the past couple of years, we have offered beginner and advanced crystal report classes. This year, starting in April, we're going to be expanding that. So we will be offering core module classes, which include general ledger, AP and bank rec, accounts receivable, the library master, and payroll. In addition to that, we will also be offering classes on the inventory, sales order, and purchase order modules. And then we also throughout the year will be offering additional Crystal Reports beginner classes, as well as advanced classes. So you'll be getting information about that probably within the next month about those classes, and they will all be held at our Louisville office. They are hands-on, instructor-led classes. So they also should be out on our website if you kind of want to take a look at when classes are coming up. But also keep that in mind if you do have any needs or have some new employees and you'd like to send them to some of our classes this year. So I'm going to just ask if anybody else has any questions. I'm not seeing anything. If not, I'll go ahead and end the presentation. I do believe within the next couple of days you will receive a follow-up email from our marketing team that will have a link to the recording of this if you want to go back and watch it again, or you want to share it with a team member. And just look forward to working with you, and I want to thank everyone for joining us today. So I'm still not seeing any additional questions, so thank you for your time. Appreciate it. Bye-bye.